okay, 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 okay. Blah 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 marama marama blah 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 marama marama blah 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 marama marama blah 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 marama marama. Yeah. 1, 2, and 3. There we go, there we go, there we go. Hello musici, let's continue our journey with Warburg, the treatise on the fugue, chapter 4. Finally, let's start chapter 4, which is about on the exposition and the development of a fugue subject. It doesn't matter whether one begins a fugue in the soprano, alto, tenor, or bass, just as in many fugue subjects, especially those based on the modes. It does not matter whether one starts with the dux, with the Führer, or with the comes. 196. By definition, the first entry of the subject must be the dux, the Führer. What Warburg means is that the dux and comes are interchangeable. Okay. Since it would bring little variety if the fugue subject was immediately produced again in this voice or at the interval where it has just been heard. Since it would be little variety if the fugue subject was immediately produced again in this voice, so the same voice, or at the interval or at that interval where it had just been heard, one has a few rules to note regarding the way in which this fugue subject should appear in different voices. Regardless how many voices or subjects there are, and whether the comes follows the dux in similar or contrary motion, on the same or a different metrical placement, or with augmented or diminished note values. At the very least, one must follow these rules in all voices in the first exposition. So, at the very least, one must follow these rules in all voices in the first exposition of the subject in an ordinary fugue. And one cannot depart from them in the course of the fugue until the middle. Regarding the entrances, it is also noteworthy that in a duple meter, the bar is divided into an even number of beats, unlike triple meters, okay, in a duple meter. With more than one strong or weak beat, both the two strong and the two weak beats are equivalent, and just because of this, one has a certain freedom regarding the entrance of the subject. For example, if the fugue subject commences on the first beat in common time, 4/4, it can also be repeated on the third beat. And if it begins on the fourth beat, the comes can be started on the second. This is easily applied to the strong and weak parts of the bar. 4/4 time, yes. So what he's saying is that if we are in 6 in common time, so this, and we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. If the subject starts on the first beat, you can even make it start, for example, on the third beat, here. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, for example. 2. In two-voice fugues, whether for equal voices, that is for two sopranos, etc., or for unequal voices, that is for soprano and bass, the two voices must always take the fugue subject in alternation. But this order can be interrupted after the first and second exposition. So after the first and second exposition by an interlude, after which the fugue subject may appear again in the same voice which had it shortly before, but at a different interval, that is, in another octave. Okay, then we'll see the examples. Two voice fugues for unequal voices appear especially in organ and keyboard fugues. Kapellmeister Bach has composed many such pieces under the title Invenciones, the inventions. Many of them indeed are fugues, if we look at them from this point of view. In fugues for two flutes, two violins, etc., the voices are equal. So if you have two violins, they are like two, let's say, two equal voices, because two flutes, they sing and play in the same range. Two violins, they are in the same range. So they are two equal voices, like two sopranos, two tenors, and that is going on. In three-voice fugues, it does not matter whether the third voice enters at the octave of the first or the second voice. After the second voice repeats the subject of the first in the transposed key. It says, in three-voice fugues, it does not matter whether the third voice enters at the octave of the first or the second voice. After the second voice repeats the subject of the first in the transposed keys. So it says, in three-voice fugue, it does not matter whether the third voice enters at the octave. So if, for example, C, the first voice, then G, and is saying that we can do C or G for the third voice. Okay. After the second voice repeats the subject of the first in the transposed key. Nevertheless, for the sake of variety, it appears better for the third voice with the octave of the tone in which the first voice began. Exactly, for variety, C, G, and C. If no additional circumstances demand otherwise, See table 10, figure 1, blah, 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 and table 18, figure 1. Either this third voice can now enter immediately, or a short interlude can be made, or it can enter before the second voice has brought the theme to an end. Bach's C major fugue is unclear. Well, Bach's C major fugue, well-tempered clavier 1. It's not clear. It's unclear why Marburg cites a four-voice fugue in the context of the explanation of three-voice fugues. Probably because it's talking about the entrance of the third voice. And since the fugue could continue with three voices, it makes sense actually to me. Let's go to this example, table 10. I remember it. In table 10, we analyzed this. So, do, re, mi, fa. Let's change the sound of the organ. I need something louder. Do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, la, re, so, la, sol, fa, mi, fa. Do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, la, re, so, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi. Of course, it makes sense. The fugue could continue with three voices. We have three voices here now, if you isolate that context. And table 18, figure 1. Table 18, figure 1. But another example by Bach, this one, where we have the subject mi, re, mi, fa, fa, do, ti, re, sol, fa, ti, de. And then it starts right away. Okay. 4. In a four-voice fugue, pairs of voices, namely a middle and an outer voice. So in a four-voice fugue, pairs of voices, namely a middle and an outer voice, is always relate to each other. Soprano and tenor, alto and bass. So soprano with the tenor and alto with the bass. Such paired voices always repeat the fugue subject at a similar interval. Or, more precisely, two such voices take the dux and two take the comes. Indeed, the dux and the comes often alternate in their vertical distribution, but there are frequent exceptions, as Marple admits, thus contradicting his own statement that there are no such exceptions. For instances of Muffaz, blah 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 blah. Muffaz verses have the dux or comes presented by ideation voices. Okay. If a subject is thus presented across the four voices, the dux appears in the first and the third voices, and the comes in the second and fourth. For example, the dux begins in the soprano, soprano dux, the alto, alto comes. Let's do this way. Soprano dux, alto comes, tenor dux, bass comes. See table 11, figure 5. So we have a table 11, figure 5. Let's see table 11, figure 5. Oh, okay. Okay, indeed, there is the dux in the soprano. Do, re, fa, mi, la, re, sol, ut, fa, mi, re, do, re, comes, re, fa, mi, la, re, sol, do, fa, mi, re, do. Tenor dux, do, re, re, fa, mi, la, re, sol, do, fa, mi, re, do, re, and comes. As it is arranged with one subject, so it is with multiple subjects, and consequently the double fugue has the rules of the exposition in common with the simple fugue. The various subjects may begin in whatever voice they desire, a soprano, alto, tenor, or bass, with the dux or comes, and the bass always imitates the alto, and the bass always imitates the alto. We'll find no difficulty in the transposition and continuation of the subject in the different voices, regardless of how many voices the double fugue consists of. 6. In many voiced fugues, so fugues with more than 4 voices, where one or more voices are doubled, for example, 2 sopranos, 2 alto voices, as in the 4-voice fugues, the odd-numbered voices are always relate to each other, and the even-numbered voices relate to each other. That is, the first, the third, and the fifth voice imitate each other, just like the second, and the fourth, and the sixth. Yes, here especially makes sense. Maybe if we think about, let's say, soprano. So we have already said a soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. They are related that way. If we have soprano 1, soprano 2, alto, tenor, and bass, he's saying that maybe, okay, he's saying, okay, this is what he's saying, basically. So we have to to count the odd number and the even number. Let's say that we have a 6-voice fugue with two sopranos, and 2 tenors. Soprano 1, soprano 2, alto, tenor 1, tenor 2, and bass. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 3, and 5, with 2, 4, and 6. That way. Okay. Although the voice regularly enter by alternating the dux and the comes, and consequently with different intervals. So although the voice regularly enter by alternating the dux and the comes, and consequently with different intervals according to the previous instructions, they could also enter irregularly via the imitation at the octaves, so that the dux or the comes appear twice in succession, albeit in different voices. See, for example, table 29, figures 1, 2, 3, and 4. 29, yes, which is, I think, the new table, because the other table, the last table we have analyzed is 28, so 29, yes. If we take these irregular examples together with the regular, one can see from the following representation that 24 possible permutations occur, since each voice can begin in 6 different ways, with 4 voices at hand. Let's analyze these 4 examples, okay, and then there is a table of permutation, and then there is section 1 on modulation, which can be a topic of the next video, and chromatic modulation, okay. We have to see even if there are perfect cadences, so here is talking about cadences, I guess. Yeah, so we can divide the videos according to the topics like that. Now, example number 1, Bovan. Re, re, fa, do, da, re, fa, do, la, fa. Re. Interesting. Really? So we have, this is a tenor, of course, with the dux, and this is the soprano with the dux. Okay, so the tenor and the soprano. Re, re, fa, sol, la, re, fa, sol, la. And now, what's this voice? Ah, it's a leap an octave higher. Okay. Fa, da, 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 da. Re, fa, mi, fa, sol, la. Re, fa. Then the bass takes the comes. Mi, fa, sol, re, fa, sol, la, fa. Okay, and then the no, that was the alto, so the alto. And then the soprano is here, this one. This is the soprano because it's starting on A. So we have bass, tenor, alto, and soprano. So there is an interrupted step in the middle, as you can see. We can write a kind of a schema at the beginning, this way. Where, of course, we have bass, tenor, alto, and soprano, and then the order 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the 2 middle voices and then the outer voices. Hurlebush. Let's see this example by fa, sol, do, la, re, fa, mi, sol, do, fa, re, fa, mi, ut, fa, sol, do, la, re, fa, mi, sol, do, mi, la, re, fa, mi, do, fa, mi, fa, sol, do, fa, re, sol, do, la, re, fa, mi, ut, fa, sol, mi, fa, sol, do, la, re, fu, do, and it continues. So, starting from F, this is a tenor, of course, tenor. Then we have the bass here. Then we have the alto, and then the soprano. This is the order. The tenor takes the dux, so F with a dux, tenor. Then there is the bass, an octave down, 2, which is the dux again. Then we have the alto B flat, so 3, the comes, and then F this way. So there is, let's say, instead of this B flat, there is this F. Okay, 4. Okay, interesting that the voice which is added is always one of the outer voices, at least for the moment. Telemann, 3-voice example. Let's see. Re, 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 mi, fa, re. Yes, this is a fugue, true, but probably part of a sonata, so a trio sonata. So it makes sense that the imitation are at unisons. Re, mi, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re. Re, in stretto, mi, fa, re, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re. Re, mi, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re. Then it's even true that here is continuous. Then in the bass does not continue, but re, mi, fa, fa, fa. Then there's a sequence, and only then re, the comes mi, fa, re, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, re, mi, do, mi, re, do, re. Re, mi, fa, re, fa, re, mi, fa, re, fa. Ah, interesting. Fa, re, do, re, mi, do. Re, do, re, mi, do, mi, re, do, re, mi, do, mi, re, do, re, placed even before. Good. And Frescobaldi. Mi, fa, sol, la, mi, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, la, mi, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, la, mi, sol, fa, mi. So we have this is the tenor on E, so tenor on E, then alto on E, mi fa sol la mi sol fa mi, alto on E, then B, soprano on B, and the bass on E again. Interesting. Mi fa sol la mi sol fa mi. Good. So we can do this. We can read this section. Table of subject permutation in a 4-voice fugue. When the fugue begins with the soprano, okay, we can have the following combinations. How to study them to remember them? Let's take a fugue subject, one of the most famous. Re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. And let's play them. A second. And let's play them in the different voices. So as we were improvising a fugue. For example, it can be the soprano, do, like dux, so dux, tenor, comes, dux, and comes. So in C major will be do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Then the second combination, soprano, alto, bass and tenor, okay. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Now, the bass before took the comes, so we could do the comes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. And then the dux. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. So we can do dux, comes, ex dux, but we can even do dux, comes, dux, comes. We are not so rigid like in Renaissance music where each voice must be in its own range, specific range. We have more freedom, so let's for the moment keep the alternation as we want it. So dux, comes, in order to study these combinations. Actually, they're written here, I guess, or not. What's the following table about? Table 30. No, this is about cadences. Okay. I think that's a table about cadences. I want to see where, okay, yes, it's a table mentioned in cadences. Okay, so soprano, bass, alto, tenor. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Do, re. And now bass, alto should be better to be here. Do, re, mi, because we need space. Sol, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Then 5, 4, so soprano, bass, tenor, alto. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, la, sol, fa, mi. That way. Then soprano, tenor, bass, alto, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, la, re, la, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa. No, bass before. Tenor, do, re, mi, fa, bass, alto. Okay, let's continue. When the fugue begins with the alto, so these are all the permutation. We can have alto, tenor, alto, tenor, bass, and soprano, alto, tenor, soprano, and bass, permutation, blah, 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 blah. The choice among these permutations depends on the circumstances and the good taste of the composer. One ordinarily follows the standard order introduced above only in the first exposition. Generally speaking, it is apparent that the fugue subject appears not only in the outermost voices, but also in the middle voices, in both thinner and fuller textures. Wait a moment. One ordinarily follows the standard order introduced above, only in the first exposition. Okay. Generally speaking, it is apparent that the fugue subject appears not only in the outermost voices. What does outermost means? I mean, exactly mean. Outermost, okay, le più esterne, let's say the more out, okay, the more, okay. Not only in the outermost voices, but also in the middle voices, both in thinner and fuller texture. Okay. Point number 8. In all these possible permutations, however, very little variety would arise if they were implemented only between the tonic and the dominant. Yet, at the same time, one must be sure that the fugue subject also appears in the necessary keys and thus will appear in its full light, such that the subsequent entries are not caught in some kind of gavotte-like meter, or always make a perfect cadence after each exposition. That's a very interesting point. So, in all these possible permutations, however, very little variety would arise if they were implemented only between the tonic and the dominant. Yet, at the same time, one must be sure that the fugue subject also appears in the necessary keys, and thus will appear in its full light, such that the subsequent entries are not caught in some kind of gavotte-like meter, or always make a perfect cadence after each exposition. Durchführung, referring either to a group of thematic entries, exposition, or to each individual entry, thematic presentation. The transposition of the fugue subject into other keys is to be approached with caution, and because a knowledge of modulation and of cadences is required for this, we should like to address both these topics in the following 2 sections, even if we already assume knowledge of them, and in an ensuing 3rd section demonstrate their use in the course of a fugue. And then session 1 about modulation, but this will be in the next video. So see you in the next video talking about modulations. Bye. Now, couple of minutes rest. Hello musici, let's continue our journey with Marburg and the treatise on the fugue. Now we are in chapter 4, section 2, on modulation. Let's see. The change from one key into another is called a key change or modulation. Although the latter word is subject to multiple meanings, as it quite often indicates the way in which a melody is led within the same mode and key, but because it may even, so if I play a melody, the modulation can indicate just the working of the melody. But it is also quite often used for the change from one key to the other without changing the tonic at the same time. For example, if one goes from C major into C minor, the tonic remains C, but in one case major, in the following case minor. This happens when one alters the expression and wants to change from a cheerful to a somber, or vice versa, from a somber to a cheerful melody. The modulation in this sense occurs not in fugues, but rather in other types of musical composition, such as chaconnes and passacaglias, and quite often between two consecutive arias, gavottes, minuets, and the like. If, however, one changes the tonic, one must often simultaneously exchange the key, as will soon be seen. As will soon be seen. How could the tonic be changed without changing the key? Probably he means the key signature. So we don't change the key signature, but we change the key. So the modulation happens, but maybe, you're in a fugue in D major. If you make a modulation to G major, you don't get rid of the C sharp in the key signature. You just write C natural when you need it. All possible modulations can be divided into two main types, diatonic and chromatic. Okay, it says literally analogous and anomalous. Okay. A modulation is called diatonic when it involves tones of the main scale. A modulation is called chromatic when it involves tones that are not contained in the main scale. Okay, and now on diatonic modulations. Because the tones of the perfect triad of a neighboring key, the tones of a perfect triad of a neighboring key can occur naturally, that is without the help of accidental, or not, that is with the help of accidental, the modulations into keys are naturally capable of this perfect triad. The modulations into keys that are naturally capable of this perfect triad are regular modulations. So, because the tones of the perfect triad of a neighboring key, neighboring means close, I guess. Let me double check. Neighboring key means vicino, attiguo, nearby key. Okay, so G major is a neighboring key of C major. Can occur naturally. Indeed, in C major we have the triad of G major, but in C major we don't have the triad of D major, but D minor. Okay. Can occur naturally, so without the help of accidentals, or not, so with the help of accidental. The modulation into keys that are naturally capable of this perfect triad are called regular modulation. But the perfect triads that occur on those notes which must first be made possible via accidentals are called irregular modulations. So probably it's talking about the fact that in C major, the modulation to D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and A minor are natural modulation, diatonic modulation. If we think about Ripper, we know that we have the steward, the modulation to the foreman, then we have the chief med, then we have the assistant med, then we have the day laborer, then we have the errand girl. So the modulation to these keys. Very nice to merge Marburg with the Ripper. The regular modulations of a major key occur at the second, okay, third, fifth, fourth, and sixth degree, not the seventh degree, because it takes the diminished fifth. Or in other words, we can say the sixth degree, so the fifth degree, this is a steward. The first degree is a steward, so the first degree is a steward. Then the foreman. Then we have the chief med. Then we have the assistant med. Maid. The fourth degree, the day laborer. The second degree, the errand girl. Of a minor key, they occur at the third degree, fourth, fifth, minor sixth, and minor seventh degree, basically. Indeed, we skip the second degree because it takes the diminished seventh, the diminished fifth. Ripple doesn't do this reasonment for the minor key, but we can create something similar another time. The quality of the key is determined by the third of each tonic into the scale of which one modulates. For example, in the key of C major, the keys of the second D, the third E, and the sixth A are small or minor. In contrast, the key of the fourth F of the fifth G are large or major. Moreover, in the key of A minor, the keys of the third C, F, and G are large or major, and the keys of the fourth and the fifth are minor or small. Notes. So notes number one. Where is the asterisk? Okay. No, first notes. Just as one proceeds with the third of the key into which one modulates. But wait, I don't see the referment here actually. Okay, maybe it's not necessary. I mean, just as one proceeds with the third of the key into which one modulates, so it is with all remaining keys. One adopts the entire scale, whether it be a major or minor key, and thus one must use non-essential accidentals in the changing of the keys, as only those accidentals belonging to the main scale according to the directive of the key signature are called essentials, assuming they are correct. Just as one proceeds with a third of the key into which one modulates, so if we are in C major, we want to make a modulation to D minor, so we have the third is D. So it is with all remaining keys. Okay, one adopts the entire scale, whether it be a major or minor key, and thus one must use non-essential accidentals in the changing of the keys, as only those accidentals belonging to the main scale to the directive of the key signature are called essentials. So it's saying that when you do modulation, then you don't change the key in the signature, but you continue with the thinking about the new scale. Yes, if now and again only a slight change is made in the key, for example, in A major key, in A major key, when the fifth degree is harmonized with a minor third, then this belongs to the freedoms of modulation. In other genres of music, but not in the fugues, if they are pitch corrected. What does it mean? In the sense of melodic motion, okay, within a key. If now and again only a slight change is made in the key, for example in A major key, when the fifth degree is harmonized with a minor third, then this belongs to the freedoms of modulation in terms of moving the melody, not changing the key, but the movement of the melody. Okay. in other genres of music, but in other genres of music, but not in the fugues, if they are to be corrected. Okay. Among these regular modulations, Marburg terms ordinary may be borrowed from Heineken, okay, who categorized modulation from a major key in the same way as Marburg. However, in his treatise, in his 1711 treatise, Heineken considers degrees 3 and 5 ordinary degrees, 4, 6, and 7 extraordinary, while in his 1728 treatise he promotes modulation to the 7th, modulation to degree 7th to the ordinary class, in the minor mode maybe. Okay. Among these regular modulations, those to the 5th, 6th, and 3rd degree in a major key, 5th, 6th, and 3rd degree in a major key are ordinary. So it's saying that those to the 5th in a major key, so let's say C major, the 5th is G, the 6th is A, and the 3rd degree is E minor, are ordinary. And the modulation to the 4th and 2nd degree are extraordinary. 4th, so F major, and the 2nd degree D minor are extraordinary. Those to the 5th degree, so he's saying that in the major mode, in ut mode, ut remi, modulation to degrees 5, 5th, 6th, and 3rd ordinary, while 4th and 2nd not ordinary. Okay. Those to the 5th, 3rd, and 6th degree in a minor key, so now let's talk about the minor key. Minor key, so A minor, Re. Those to the 5th, the 3rd, and the 6th degree in a minor key are ordinary. And the modulation to the 4th, so 5th degree would be, for example, if it's A minor, it's E minor, C major, and F major. And the modulation to the 4th degree, so D minor, and the 7th degree, G major, are not ordinary, are extraordinary, it says. Extraordinary, okay. Okay, extra. The similarity present between two keys with regard to their key signature is also to be found with regard to modulation, as one can see comparing C major with A minor. Okay. Beta, the irregular modulation. Let's see, the irregular modulations of a major key occur at the 7th with the diminished 5th of the 7th degree, when the diminished 5th of this 7th degree is raised by an accidental, and thereby the harmonic triad is possible. For example, if one wanted to modulate from C major to B minor, but it's irregular. Thus, the F of the 5th of B would have to be made into F sharp. Of a minor key, they occur on the 2nd degree when the diminished 5th of this 2nd is raised by an accidental, and thereby the harmonic triad is made possible. For example, if one wanted to modulate from A minor to B minor, thus the F as the 5th of B would have to be made into sharp, F sharp. Such an irregular modulation, however, can only be used occasionally. Such an irregular modulation, however, can only be used occasionally in a non-essential way, and indeed only in interludes and not in the presentation of the fugue subject, so in section between one exposition and another. And it makes sense if we want to do a passage, an interlude between one exposition and another, we can. Why not pass through one of these keys? Then chromatic modulations, and there are no examples in this section exactly, because this table, the next one, refers to cadences, so for the next video. The remote modulations, no. On chromatic modulations, okay. So about diatonic modulations, we said that we have we can do a modulation in a major key. Let's take C major. The modulation to the 5th degree, to the dominant, the minor relative, A minor, and the 5th of the minor relative, E minor, are considered ordinary, while the two remaining, so the 4th degree and the 2nd degree, are considered extraordinary. In the minor mode, the modulation to the 3rd degree, so C major, the 5th degree E minor, and the 6th degree F major, they are considered ordinary, while the modulations to the 4th degree D minor and to the 7th degree G major are considered extraordinary. We can do in both cases a modulation to B minor, that's fine, but as in a transition, it says not transition, but it says in an interlude. I would say as well that we can even do modulation to B flat major. Why not? If we are doing an interlude, we are in C major. It's very easy to pass from F and then to come back away. So it is possible. On chromatic modulation now, on chromatic modulations, we divide this into the near and remote, in proximas and in peregrinas. So near is proximas, proxim, close, near, and peregrinas, the pilgrimage, very far. Indeed, pilgrimage, peregrinus, pellegrinaggio, is the same root. The near modulations of a major key occurs on the 7th degree. Okay. At the 7th degree, okay, I see the logic. Because B minor, in the modulation into B minor, we are not altering the B. We are altering its 5th. But if we want to B flat major, we have to alter it B flat. So of a major key occurs at the 7th degree when this is first flattened with an accidental and thereby is made capable of the harmonic triad. So if in C major, one transforms the 7th B into B flat and then modulates into it. Okay, so makes sense. Yes, the near modulations. Of a minor key, the same thing happens, of course, on the 2nd degree. Of a minor key occurs at the 2nd degree when this is first flattened with an accidental and thereby is made capable of the harmonic triad. If in A minor, one transforms the 2nd B into B flat and then modulates into it. Clear. What is said of the irregular diatonic modulations? What is said of the irregular diatonic modulations in the previous section also pertains. What is said of the irregular diatonic modulations in the previous section, so what we said about the F sharp, this also pertains to these nearer chromatic ones regarding their use in fugues. So occasionally and in a non-essential way, indeed only in interludes and not in the presentation of a fugue subject. So if you are in a fugue in C major, we won't make an exposition in B flat major. Then the remote modulations occur when one and the same chord is represented by two different symbols, accidentals, and thereby the seat basis of its harmony changes and belongs to a distinctly different key. Since this dual representation of one and the same chord by two different symbols is based on the so-called enharmonic species, such modulations are commonly called enharmonic modulations. In general, one accomplishes this via the tonic helping chord, that is, the chord of the augmented second. Third inversion of a fully diminished seventh chord. So if it says third inversion, probably it's talking about okay, the augmented second. So like A flat, okay, so 2, 4, 6, but where there is an augmented second between the bass, which is always 1, and the 2. So or 1, 2 sharp, 4, 6, or 1 which is already flat, 2 natural, 4 and 6. Okay. And the chord stemming, so that is the chord of the augmented second, and the chord stemming from its inversions. What does it mean to stem? Stemming. Stemming. Okay, but Italiano stemming, to stem, stelo, gambo. To stem, really? Verb arrefermati, tamponare, rimuovere. Ok, we'll see. Because it arises from 4 tones, because it arises from 4 tones, one gains the opportunity to digress into 4 quite remote keys through its representation by 2 different symbols, its enharmonic reinterpretation, which we would like, for example, to examine the following chord consisting of, okay, G sharp, B, D, and F. Let's write it. Let's write this, because otherwise we will get crazy. So let's see the practical example of this. This is a diminished chord, and we agree on that. So let's say that this is page 97. Diminished chord, which is G sharp, B, D, F. First, one is in A minor here. We are in A minor. If one transforms these notes into A flat, okay, so G sharp becomes A flat, B, D, and F, one enters into C minor. Oh, okay, yes, because where is the resolution of this chord? Here it is. But where is the resolution of this chord? Fa, Fa, Mi, where C is a tonic, okay. If one changes them again into G sharp, B, C double sharp, E sharp, one turns toward D sharp minor. Yes. Why? Because the augmented fourth, so C double sharp, the augmented fourth results here. So D sharp minor, that's the resolution. The tonic is D sharp minor. And here it is. So as just to make another example which is very similar by enharmonic notes, A flat, C flat, D, and F, this turns out to be the same notes, actually the same, even in the resolution, and this is E flat minor, D sharp minor, E flat minor, they are enharmonic keys. Okay, we know that. Dun, dun. Lastly, if one transforms then into G sharp, so another example, the last one actually, G sharp, B, D, E sharp. I made a very interesting section about a very interesting explanation with exercise in Partimentini in the Partimento method, chapter 8, chapter 8, stage 10, about the diminished seventh chord, where we see all the resolutions of these inversions. So if you want to study them, go there, you find all the explanation, the Partimento method, so the Baroque path, step 2, which is very, very, very long actually, because the Partimento method is a very long journey, but stage 8.10, called diminished sevenths. If you go in the description, you can see the website, the link to the website, to the Partimento methods page, and then you can see all the things. Now, F sharp minor, the resolution here is on F sharp minor, so, or even major, why not? F sharp minor. Okay, good. Now, one can proceed in this way with all tonic helping chords. So of all this enharmonic modulation, however, not a single one belongs in the key, belong in the genre of the fugue. And we have explained them only so that someone who does not know them is not astonished when hearing them in fantasias and other genres of music. And because some have made a great secret of it, although they happen quite naturally. C.P. Bach explored an harmonic reinterpretation of a fully diminished seventh chord systematically in order to modulate from C major to any key. Yes. As Marple said, this technique belongs especially to the improvisation of a free fantasia. Yes, the cadenzas, embellishment, compositional studies. This can be very interesting, something interesting to read. We'll search it. And then the concluding section on fantasia, yes, of course. But what this WQ, let's check it later. At the end of the video. The remaining types of enharmonic modulations I've reserved for myself. The remaining types of enharmonic modulations I reserve for myself to lay before connoisseurs on different occasions. And this technique is of little use in fugues. True. Then, since the modulations explained up until now only concern the present-day minor and major key, we want to add here the modulation common in the modes. Think and remember that when we talk about the modes, in the Renaissance system and in the, say, 100% modal system, modulation, so pitch shift, doesn't exist. A piece, a motet, a chanson, a canzona composed in the first tonus remains in the first tonus from the beginning to the end. So this modulation, the concept of modulation, changing the tonic, doesn't exist in the Renaissance at all. But here we are in a period where the modal system is practiced with some rules taken from the modal system. Since the modulation, okay, in the D Doyen mode, modulation occurs into the A Aeolian mode. So I say into the D Doyen mode, into the A Aeolian mode, into the F Lydian mode, into the transposed B flat Lydian mode, into the transposed G Dorian mode, and then C Ionian mode. Okay. Into the E Phrygian mode, the modulation occur into the A Aeolian mode, into the G Mixolydian mode, into the C Ionian mode, into D Dorian mode, which is 7th degree but minor, into the transposed B Phrygian mode. Okay. In the F Lydian mode, the modulations occurs into the C Ionian mode, into the A Aeolian mode, into the D Dorian mode, and transpose the B flat Ionian mode. Gamma in the G mixolydian mode, the modulation occurs into the D mixolydian mode, into the E Phrygian mode, into the C Ionian mode, into the A Aeolian mode, into the transposed B Phrygian mode. In the A Aeolian mode, the modulation occurs into the E Phrygian mode, into the C Ionian mode, into the F Lydian mode, into the D Dorian mode, into the G Mixolydian mode. In the C Ionian mode, the modulation occurs into the G Mixolydian mode, into the E Phrygian mode, into the A Aeolian mode, into the F Lydian mode, into the D Dorian. If you think this is nothing more than degree 5, degree 3, and degree 6 considered ordinary, and degree 4 and degree 2 considered extraordinary. So I would say that this is quite forced. Let's say it's a way of forcing the modal system in the tonal system. But can make sense, can be comprehensible, let's say, from this point of view. Okay, now I want to see what's this is talking about. So let's open Brave, the browser. So he says Bach explored, in CP Bach, because it can be a very nice piece to study or analyze together and then study it. CP Bach Q 121 54. Ah, yes, I remember this document. cpbach.org. Yes, I remember. No, come on, I want this. That's something very important for the modulations. Yes, we should analyze this for modulation. It's very beautiful. Chromatic progression with arpeggiated right hand. Incredible. I remember it. I totally forgot about this document, but someone many years ago sent this to me. Sent this to me. Because then you have to continue according to the key. Ah, 3 4 6. It says 3 flat. No, 3 flat. Then 2. Amazing. Okay, interesting. We'll see another time. It's very fun. Okay, we are here, and where's the other page? Here is the page we're writing. Yes. And then CP Bach, the complete works, series 7, 8, cadenzas, embellishment and compositional studies. But what's this? The complete works series. Am I missing something? So CP Bach, the complete works series 8/1, cadenzas, embellishments, and compositional studies. Ah, critical embellishments for, okay. So it's a critical edition? It's wow, I didn't know about this. That's a very useful resource for embellishments. Amazing. I didn't know. Compositional studies. Ah, okay, it's the same. Okay, it's from the same website. Good. Ah, okay, and then there is the volume. Wait a moment, this is a book that you can buy, I guess. Yes. Order, general preface, introduction. What type of book is that? But what's in the book? I mean, does it contain the same documents? It's just a printed version if you want a printed version. Los Altos, Santa Clarita, Cambridge. Let's see, I'll figure it out. General preface, table of contents. Okay, that's just an excerpt. This is longer, okay. This is a longer book, okay. This is just inversion canon. That would be very nice, actually, this book. Interesting. And then cadenzas, okay. Introduction, general preface. This seems a good resource to buy. And then in the next video, okay, we'll continue talking about cadences section 2. So, bye, see you. Rest, I need a little rest. So, hello, okay. Passing musical composition, though mostly composing machine here, very curious. Where can you start? So, you can start from many places. According to my experiences, to my experience of teaching, I created a big course where the first two chapters are entirely free. And in the first two chapters, you learn to compose with two parts, perfect two-part counterpoint with diminutions and partimenti. So what you can do, you can start with the two chapters. Then, if you want to continue, you continue. Otherwise, you go to other books, other resources. But in any case, they are the very, let's say, the most important basic for two-part composition. How to access them? Go to this link. Now I'll send you the link because I have a little time now, so I'll answer very quickly to you, and then I have to read another section of this book because then I have some lessons today. Partimenti, here it is. And this is the link. Click on start now, and then you can create a free account if you don't have it yet. Where is the live streaming? Here it is. Good. So have a nice day. Now we'll continue this. Hello Musici, let's continue our journey with Marburg, the treatise on the fugue. This is a treatise on the fugue, and now we are in this section about cadences. Section 2, on cadences. A clause is otherwise called a cadence, a closing clausula, but closing clausula, clausula in Latin means cadence, so it's like to say a cadence, a closing clausula, or a closing formula, or a closing passage. Cadence, or shoot in French, or shot if you are in the United States, shoot, you shoot. Clausola in Latin, and cadenza in Italian, right? Shotgun if you're in the United States, shotgun. It consists of two pitches, literally intervals, in succession through which a harmony can be ended. These two pitches are known as essential. And the others, which are accompaniment or preparatory, are known as non-essential or discretionary. This is something very important in music. I usually use the word structural note, structural things. You can say structural or essential, but music in the style works this way. You have something which is structural, the fundament, like a column, and then embellishments, so like little ornaments, cadences, these things. Cadences, I mean, ornamentation, figurations, something you put as a dress, stylistic things. Because the cadence in the Renaissance and Baroque style, the structure is the same, the essential elements are the same, but then the dress is different. Every cadence is either perfect or imperfect. Okay, cadences are called perfect, so clausola perfecta totalis or formalis, not only when they can divide one part of a piece from another part, but also when they can completely end a piece. Cadences are called imperfect, clausola imperfecta or partialis, when they can divide one part of a piece from another, but when they cannot properly conclude a piece, unless it occurs in an extraordinary way, so that you want a conclusion to don't sound as a real conclusion, because then another movement starts. But this is something more rhetoric, belonging to the rhetoric of music. One, on the perfect cadences. So we have the perfect cadence, and then notes, and then, I guess, imperfect cadence, right, and then some notes, I guess. And then section trees. Section 3. On the perfect cadence, in the perfect cadence, the fundamental or bass voice moves from the 5th degree to the 1st, during which time the highest voice either ascends from the 7th degree to the 1st or descends from the 2nd to the 1st. If one adds the middle voices to these outer voices, one therefore has 4 types of clausulae with respect to the melody. The soprano clausula or clausula cantizans, or the alto clausula or clausula altizans, the tenor clausula or clausula tenorizans, or the bass clausula or clausula bassizans. Here they are, bassizans. The soprano clausula, as said, goes either from the 7th degree to the 1st, as in table 30. Okay, and now we come back to the table. Mi, fa, come on. The soprano clausula, as said, goes either from the 7th degree to the 1st, as in table 30, figures 1 and 2, or downward for the 2nd degree to the 1st degree. Interesting. That's a very different point of view, because it's calling and defined as clausula cantizans the fact that it can work in the soprano. Mi, fa, sol, fa, as in figure 3. We should be the clausula tenorizans, actually. Let's see. Traditionally, the progression degree 2 to 1 forms a tenor clausula, not a soprano clausula. Let's see. The alto clausula remains on the 5th degree, so sol, as in table 33, figures 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Sol, 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 sol. Or ascends from the 2nd degree to the 3rd. Re, mi, figure 2. This is called altizans. No, wait a moment. The clausula tenorizans, the tenor clausula, descends from the 4th degree to the 3rd. Fa, mi. If you have the 7th, fa, mi. Or the 2nd to the 3rd. Re, mi, fa, mi. Okay. The bass clausula ascends from a 4th. The bass clausula ascends a 4th from the 5th degree or descends a 5th, which is the same. Sol, to, pom, pom. Let's say that in the most traditional way, the clausula cantizans is 7-1, tenorizans is 2-1, bassizans is sol, to, or do, sol, and the other thing, the clausula tenorizans, altizans is sol, sol, or sol, mi. Here there's a little different classification, but we will see, understand why. The 4 voices do not always conclude with their designated closing intervals. However, they often tend to exchange these among themselves, thus resulting in inverted cadences. But if the cadence should remain perfect under inversion, the bass clausula must either remain in the bass. That's the most important thing. The bass clausula must either remain in the bass, or the bass must close with one of the 2 soprano clausulae, mi, fa, or sol, fa. These 2 clausulae, namely the one in the bass and the one in the soprano, give the cadence its actual form, while the clausulae of the 2 middle voices determine nothing because they only serve as fillers, which is why many call them clausulae explementales. Okay, it's another way of looking at this clausulae, which can be complementary to the traditional system. Makes sense from a tonal point of view, where the bass must be 5-1. 5-1. Without lingering on the many possible permutations, we would like to show in a few examples how the soprano cadence can be made into the alto clausola, figures 4, 8, and 9. Okay, so as you can see, the soprano now 4, 8, and 9. That is sol, 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 8 and 9. Re, mi, sol, do, mi, fa, re, re, mi, sol, or sol, sol, made into the tenor clausola, figures 5, 6, and 10. Tenor clausola 5, 6, and 10. Fa, mi, re, mi. Okay, so he's saying that he's making this classification. That voice which goes to the third is a tenor clausola, and the voice which goes to the octave is the soprano clausola. Makes sense. In this tonal sense, tonal order, where we need a third, we cannot conclude like in the Renaissance this way. We must have the third, or fa sol. No, we need the third, so it makes sense that the tenor clausola wants the third. So in these examples, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, mi, or re, mi, tenor clausola in the soprano, and figure 10, fa, fa, mi, sol, do, sol, 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 do. Play this example separated. Made into the bass clausola, figure 7. Sol, do, this one, figure 7. Sol, do, with the alto singing fa, mi, so, sol, do. It's crossing. Sol, sol, and mi, fa, sol, do. Then how the alto cadence can be made into the soprano clausola. So the alto cadence can be made into the soprano clausola, figures 5 and 6. The alto cadence into the soprano clausola, so 5 and 6. Here in the alto we had the soprano clausola, so re, do, re, do, re, do, sol, fa, mi, fa, yes, sol, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, correct. Sol, fa, mi, fa. Made into the tenor clausola, figure 4, 7, 8, and 9. 4, 7, 8, and 9. Fa, mi, re, mi, fa, mi, fa, mi, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, mi. Okay, into the bass clausola, figure 10, because in the alto we have sol, do. Now, how the tenors can be made into the soprano clausola, figures 4 and 9. The tenor soprano clausola, the tenor 4 and 9, because we have 7, 7, 1. So the soprano clausola is the one ending on degree 1. And sol, fa, sol, fa, made into the alto clausola, figures 5, 7, and 10. 5, 7, and 10. 5, 7, and 10. Into the alto clausola, sol, 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 and into the bass clausola, figure 8, sol, do. How the bass cadence can be made into the soprano clausola, figures 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, as you can see. Mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, mi, fa, mi, fa. Here it is. One often allows the alto to descend from the 7th degree to the 5th, as in table 30, figure 11. From the 7th degree to the 5th, there, okay, instead of mi, fa, but mi, ut, mi, ut. Okay. This sometimes occurs if in the tenor if the voices are exchanged. Such a descent of the voice is termed anomalous or a chute irregulier cadence, irregular cadence, irregular descent. To prepare the perfect cadence, one generally uses the 6-5 chord or the 4-6 chord, or also the 11th chord. I think it's talking about double suspension. So because the 11th is the 4th. It's referring to the 4/3 in the bass in figure 13. Okay. These latter two must be made on the strong beat with a dominant degree in the bass, so that afterwards the first degree can also be heard on a strong beat. See, okay, figures 12, 13, and 14. In that case, we have the 6/5 harmony, mi, fa, sol, do. Indeed, there's the 5th in the soprano, which must be prepared because the 5th here takes the PSR, so 6/5. Sol, sol, la, sol, do. Then mi, fa, double cadence with the 6/4, and fa, fa, mi, fa, because it's 11th, okay, it's 11th, then I mean 11th, 10th at the end if you count over the bass, because it's not a simple 4th. Good. The ancients, so let's see, we cannot do this. Maybe we should divide this into perfect and imperfect cadences, yes, arriving up to this point, and this in the next video, because there are many examples, yes. So, the ancients also distinguished the perfect cadences as in primarias, secundarias, terciarias, affinales, and peregrinas. A. The cadence that occurs on the first degree of the piece was called primaria, likewise principalis or precipua, yes, because it was needed at the end. It was also called finalis. Beta, a cadence that occurred on the 5th degree was called secundaria or dominans, likewise minus principalis. A cadence that occurred on the 3rd degree was called tertiaria or medians, or by some others like Pietro Ponzio, is called quasi-principale, so almost principal, primaria. Delta, a cadence that occurred on another neighboring key from the scale, was called affinalis, or transitory. A cadence that occurred on a neighboring key that was not from the scale was called peregrina, adoptita, or assumta. The old authors are not in agreement on this. However, and one might consider a clausula to be a peregrinum, the old authors are not in agreement on this, however, and one might consider a clausula to be a peregrinum that another views as an affinale. All these clausulae from beta onwards are called, in a word, clausulae intermedie, because they are used in the middle of a piece when the key changes. Here it is still to note that the Phrygian mode in E has no clausulam primarium, as it only permits an imperfect clausula. Because fa, mi, if you alter this, you are not anymore in the Phrygian cadence. You are in a minor mode. That is, no clausulam perfectum, that it has no clausula perfectum secundarium for the semitone on the 5th degree because of the diminished 5th above B, and gamma, that for this same reason the Mixolydian mode G has not clausulam perfectum tertiarium on the 3rd degree, right? In addition, the ancients spoke of all kinds of clausulis, ordinatis, and salti. Wait a moment. In addition, the ancients spoke of all kinds of clausulis, ordinatis, and saltivis, ordinatis ascendibus and descendibus, ordinatis ascendibus perfectioribus and imperfectioribus, of saltitivis perfectioribus and imperfectioribus, of clausuli formalibus perfectis dissectis, and indeed of clausulis formalibus perfectis dissecti desiderantibus. That would be my nickname. Clausulis formalis perfectis dissectis desiderantibus. And of two, clausulis formalis perfectis dissectis scendintibus. I must draw a breath. Right, I agree. Of cadences compositis, of cadences compositis majoribus and minoribus, and even further of cadences compositis majoribus diminutis and cadences compositis minoribus diminutis, etc. In the present days, more accessible and certain way of teaching, one does not need all of this useless classification and reclassification or subclassifications, whereby things are multiplied without need and which have no other purpose than either something incidental regarding the preparation and progression of a clausula or the variety of meters. I myself wonder how writers on music can still be found, how writers on music can still be found who have the heart to take up the same dusty contrivances again. Okay? Penultimate note, regarding practice, the perfect cadence is further divided into the plain and the ornate. True. In clausulam puram or simplicem and ornatum or floridam compositam in Latin, the cadences are called plain or common if they are made without the addition of certain melodic or harmonic figures, as are implied by the prescribed pitches, so the intervals. The clausulae are called ornate if they are accompanied by all sorts of melodic harmonic figures. If this occurs on a prolonged dominant, and the final chord is delayed by various figures, that correspond to the preceding passages. Figures that correspond to the preceding passages, which in a fugue are generally taken from the subjects, the pedal point and the counter subjects, one called this a pedal point or corona in Latin. A prolonged this. No, wait, one called this a pedal point or corona in Latin, a prolonged cadence. This is ordinarily used at the end of a fugue where it can be continued or prolonged on the prolonged final chord, This is ordinarily used at the end of a fugue where it can be continued on the prolonged final chord. One sees a fugue example in figures 15 and 16. There's a footnote 212. The term corona crown is related to the fermata symbol that indicates an improvised cadenza over a dominant harmony in the context of a concerto. In a fugue, however, one would not refer to the concluding dominant pedal point as a cadenza. Okay, but in Italian, what you say fermata in English, for us in Italian is corona. This symbol is called corona in English, like the beer. Birra corona, yes. As an aside, note that the resolution of the chordal seventh into the third degree are nothing other than perfect cadences. As an aside, note that the resolution of the chordal seventh to the third degree are nothing other than perfect cadences. Okay, if you have ta 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 ta, is considered perfect cadences. This out of place statement may stem from Rameau, who theorized that cadential logic applied not only at phrase endings, but in fact govern. This out-of-place statement may stem from Rameau, who theorized that cadential logic applied not only at phrase endings, but in fact all harmonic progressions. Okay. Let's see figures 15 and 16. Okay, pedal points, those pedal points. So for example, if we take this figure 13 and we put some ornaments instead of, but we do, we have a cadence with ornamentation, or the following one as well. The last two examples, they are pedal points and they belong to this ornamented level. So we have this, then so fa, di, re, la, di, la, sol, fa, mi, re, la, fa, mi, re, la, sol, la, fa, 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 la. And then it's prolonged on the final note, di, re, or idem, so the same composer, bass, tenor, alto, and soprano. Okay, so this. E flat with D in the bass, really? And so we conclude this section. As you can see, it says that it can be prolonged not only on the 5th degree, the pedal point, but even on the final chord, because the elements that we can find here, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, re, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, re, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, mi, that it can be found even on the final resolution. The same as well before, tarararan, tarararan, where we are on the 5th degree, and then on the 1st degree. At the end, tarararan, tarararan, and then the conclusion. So with this section, we conclude the first part of this topic about cadences, and next time we'll continue with about imperfect cadence. See you in the next video. Bye. And now